How's it going, guys, and welcome to the main channel. So with the announcements of the Persona 3, 4, and 5 games coming out to Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 5, I figured this will be a good time to kind of talk about the Persona series and kind of a guide of like where to start or where to begin. I figured there's a lot of people that just played Persona 5 and maybe they're interested into the other games now that they're coming into like PlayStation 4 or PC or anything, and a lot of people are just gonna be interested. I'm like, what game should I play first, right? It's a fair question. And needless to say, there is a little bit of a convoluted situation with a lot of the Persona games because there's a lot of re-releases, there's a lot of subtitles to them, and there's a lot of like sequels / spin-offs and kind of weird situations and everything. So today we're going to talk about in a really comprehensive kind of way. Not going to talk about every single game as far as like giving you like a summary or anything like that. That'll make this video extremely long, and this is not the video to kind of give you a summary of every game or anything like that. There's very other videos out there, but I'll tell you my opinion as far as like what game I think you should start with, what's a good game to start with, or like what games you should maybe like think of like emulating or something like that, because not every game is available on every console at the same time. So starting with number one, obviously Persona 1, the one that started all. There's two versions of this game. Originally the game released in 1996, and it was Megami Moroku Persona. That's the one that came out on the PlayStation 1. You can still play on the PlayStation 1. There is a American release of that game that has almost nothing to do with the other one. There's a lot of changes and everything. You can also play the PlayStation Portable version of this game, which there's also some changes on that. So some people like one, some people like the other one. Personally, I don't think it's a good game to start with. For a lot of different reasons. This game has almost nothing to do with the rest of the Persona series, and same with Persona 2, which I will talk about in a second. These are basically what you will call the first trilogy: Persona 1, Persona 2, Innocent Sin, and Eternal Punishment. They make kind of like this trilogy. And then what they call the Neo Persona games, which is Persona 3, 4, and 5, may have a different team with a different kind of gameplay and everything. So Persona 2 also came out on the PlayStation 1. Eternal Punishment came out on the American release, but Innocent Sin did not. And then later on, Innocent Sin came out for the PlayStation Portable, but there is no American release for the second part of the game. So it's a kind of a convoluted situation there. All you need to know is Persona Innocent Sin is the first part of Persona 2, and then the second part is Persona Eternal Punishment, and you're able to play these games either on the PlayStation 1 or PlayStation Portable. I also don't think these games are good starting points for that. As I mentioned earlier, they are part of the old Persona games that have almost nothing to do with Persona 3, 4, and 5 as far as like game mechanics or storytelling. There are references on Persona 3 pertaining to Persona 1 and 2, but they're really like here and there. None of them are really like story relevant or anything like that. They are fantastic games, especially Persona 2 has a really good storyline, and if you are for like crazy time traveling storylines with like different characters having like a bunch of plot twists, and there's a lot of craziness happening, I strongly recommend Persona 2, but definitely it's not one for beginners. You definitely should be like more into JRPGs if you want to try this out. Persona 1 is also a pretty good game. Do recommend it, but again, I don't know if it will be, if you play Persona 5, I don't know if Persona 1 is gonna be like you go to or something like that. Anyway, so moving on into Persona 3 and Persona explaining, Persona 3 has a couple of re-releases. Persona 3 FES, which came out a year or two after Persona 3, the original Persona 3. And then there's also Persona 3 Portable, which is a visual novel style version of Persona 3. So basically what it is they originally released Persona 3 FES on the PlayStation 2, and then again a re-release on Portable. There are a little differences, and I made a whole video regarding what the difference between Persona 3 Portable and Persona 3 FES are. I think this is a better starting point than Persona 2 or Persona 1. A lot of the same mechanics from Persona 5 are here, such as the social links, such as the dungeon crawling aspect. The turn-based style of gameplay is still the same here. The personas work very much in a similar kind of way. There's fusions. There's a lot of the same stuff, but there's also a lot of differences, such as how much difficult this game is compared to Persona 3. I'm sorry, to Persona 5. This game does have a lot of mechanics that some people may think a little bit more obsolete. Obviously, with Persona 4 and Persona 5, games improve over time, and Persona games tend to really improve on certain mechanics over time. So if you the Persona social links may not be as good, the gameplay may be a little bit harder, like I mentioned earlier, and some people do argue that things like the Tartarus, which is kind of like the way to go on the dungeoning, is not as kind of fun as in other games. But anyway, Persona 4 Golden. Persona 4 Golden will be actually probably the one that I will say is the best one to start with. I feel like it does have a lot of the elements from Persona 3 and Persona 5, but it does have more of like the fun factor. I think this is a fun game where, like, if you're interested in like an easygoing storyline with like really interesting, compelling characters that feel a lot like Persona 5, but at the same time has some flavor and some taste and everything, this is definitely a game to check out. It's also very beginner friendly. It's not as hard as some other Persona games. Maybe it is also not as long as Persona 5. I think it'll be maybe about like 60 to 80 hours long, opposed to maybe like 100 to 150 hours long. So Persona 4 Golden, I think it feels like a good starting point. If I were to say out of all the Persona games, which I think you should start with, that'll be it. Obviously, Persona 5 Royal is also a great choice to start with if you haven't already played Persona 5. I think I made this video more thinking most people have played Persona 5, but if you haven't, definitely Persona 5 Royal is another way to start with. Now, there's a difference between Persona 5 and Persona 5 Royal. Persona 5 Royal is basically a enhanced version with DLC stuff attached to it. So there's a lot of new content and everything. Typically, I will say just skip Persona 5 and play Persona 5 Royal. There's just a lot more stuff going on in that game. You may also see a game called Persona 5 Strikers, which is also available on the PlayStation 4 store or in the Switch. This game is actually a sequel to Persona 5 or Persona 5 Royal, and it does continue the story from there on, so I don't encourage you to play that one first. I think the Persona 5 Royal will be a good starting point if you're kind of trying to get a hold of what the Persona series is like and everything. Is very accessible, and now that it's coming into like Xbox, PlayStation 5, PC and all that, it's just gonna be a really rarely available game. There's also a lot of big community when it comes to these Persona games, and yeah, that's pretty much here as far as like what I think they should start with. I didn't want to make this very long. I don't like making really long videos because I don't know if people are gonna sit through 30 hours of like summary. This guy literally started doing like a summary of every game, and I was like, yeah, I don't know, I think there's some people that have already made better videos on like summaries of this kind of games and everything, so check them out. I personally like all the Persona games. My favorite one is Persona 3, although I do understand there are some drawbacks to each game. Some games have different things that people look forward to. Some people like the social aspect more of the games. Some people like the storytelling more. For example, Persona 2, as I mentioned before, does have a really good storytelling, and I think out of all the games, it may have the best story. Some people may call Persona 1 like a game that has like a good combination between gameplay and storyline, but it is a much older game, so some people don't like the age of the game, kind of how it looks and everything. Persona 4 Golden, I think, is a good kind of all-rounder. It doesn't have the best storyline, but it does have really good funny characters. The story can be compelling. The gameplay is pretty solid, so I think every game has like its own good pros and cons and everything, so check them out. I really like all the games. I do have guides pretty much for everything except for Persona 1 and 2, so if you're interested in those as well, check them out. I do a lot of Persona content here on the channel, so if you have any questions or any other suggestions for future videos, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll be happy to read that later on and reply to it if I'm able to. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this, guys. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye. But before we end this video, I want to thank all the members: Miko, Another Fox, Demicro, H2DK, King Narukami 45, Ethan McNeil, and Rising Oblivion. Thank you so much, guys, for your support. I couldn't make these videos without your help.